Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check, brought to you by BB. There is no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about markets. Welcome back, guys. Happy Wednesday. A few days into the weekly candle now. Obviously, as we know, it started out with quite the bang. ETH gave us that crazy Monday range. We're about 1 to 2 hours off of the weekly and daily open on Sunday night. We had that huge cascade down. We had the huge buyback yesterday. And now, of course, the market is trying to decide its true directionality from this new pivot that we find ourselves in. Hopefully, the answer to that question is not range, but you guys already know we're going to do our best to answer all of these questions and then some throughout this the show. But I'm Tommy. You guys also know me as Snorlax. I'm, of course, joined by Max, Tucker, and Unbothered Chef Jackus. Welcome to you guys as well. Like I said, I think it's the theme of it being a volatile week is probably not going anywhere. And before we can kind of discuss where we think that volatility could ensue going forward, right? Whether we continue this squeeze northward that we've had since the dip, or whether the dip is going to continue dipping, we're going to need you guys to smash that like button. If nothing else, I know most of you are entertained by the price action that we've had over the last 2 or 3 days, up or down. I mean, crypto is, if nothing else, entertaining. So make sure to smash that like button. We're doing our best to cover it all for you in real time, and we're going to continue to do so. And like I said, also give you some thoughts on kind of where we think the market could be going next, and obviously discuss different scenarios, because nothing is ever certain in markets, as we have seen. But yeah, the age-old question in the title: is crypto ever going to pump again? It's funny that we're that we're asking that question. But yeah, I mean, right now you look across the board, Bitcoin, it's like everybody will say this: Bitcoin looks fine, but and then they usually talk about an altcoin, a major, not looking quite as strong as Bitcoin. That's really been the theme of this cycle. It's been a Bitcoin dominance cycle. So, to that regard, Bitcoin is going to continue to dominate. But where it has not quite been a Bitcoin dominant cycle, obviously we've had SOL outperformance. You've had strength from altcoins much sooner in the cycle than you probably have in previous ones. But right now, when you look at SOL, when you look at ETH, when you look at BNB, there are levels they need to reclaim. We have high time frame market structure breaks on these assets that, until they are reclaimed, you do threaten lower prices. So could that be where the market's headed, right? I think these are kind of the levels that you need to be watching out for. On ETH, that's around 3K. On BNB, 620. And on SOL, that's probably around 225. So those are the levels I think that majors probably need to get back above. And after you see that, you'll probably start to see risk get bought back. Because as we were discussing yesterday, a big reason that alts sold off so hard, at least early in the weekend, right? I think the second half of the weekend was more so majors selling off and that correlation taking alts lower. But before that, you have de-risking from large players. We usually see funds in crypto when there's any uncertainty, especially into a weekend, sell off the highest risk assets on their books, which usually meme coins, usually altcoins. That's why they got beaten down so hard. But if majors reclaim those levels, those same entities are probably going to be buying those assets back. Of course, the flip side, it's as if we cannot reclaim these levels, maybe these assets continue to go lower. But these are questions that I want to get to on today's show, guys. I'd love to know what we're thinking in the markets. Looking across the board on my watch list, some things are green, some things are red. I think the market's still a little bit indecisive, which is not surprising given that we really haven't moved since yesterday. The last thing I want to touch on before I officially open up the floor is that we thought we might have some headline risk yesterday, but as we are seeing, all of these political headline risks are so far turning out to be nothing burgers. I imagine at some point, though, we're going to get a headline that people are going to want to fade because of what's happened on these previous headlines. And then that will probably be the one that you that you really want to ape and get long for or stay long for. But yeah, yesterday the crypto czar David Sachs was speaking, and I think people were hoping for a Bitcoin strategic reserve, anything to hint explicit buy pressure within crypto. And was nothing burger. I think he said about like 4 or 5 sentences. But yeah, I'd love to open up the floor, see where everybody's at with the markets. I think the levels are pretty clearly outlined for everything across the board. We can discuss, like I said, whether things are going higher, whether things are going lower, and of course, the best assets to outperform the market in either case. So how are we doing, guys? What are we seeing in the markets? Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, Tommy. Happy Wednesday. Yeah, I mean, for me, kind of like we talked about the last couple days, I think, well, I'm personally in the camp, at least on something like ETH, that we're going to need to put in some sort of higher low, right? Something like that. And then we can resume our uptrend. But obviously we're going to need Bitcoin to stay somewhat strong, right? Like a revisit to these levels would not be ideal. So I'd say, I don't know, maybe somewhere like 95-ish for Bitcoin. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said about the announcements, kind of nothing burgers. We pump into it and then it gets faded like yesterday. I don't know. I mean, because the stuff I'm seeing, BlackRock buying a ton of ETH and, boomers still acquiring Bitcoin, like the kind of under the hood stuff like that has remained strong. But it's just not moving the market right now. So I think, yeah, in search of here, maybe like right here, I think is a good level for Bitcoin. But just that we're gonna, put in a higher low. And like I said the other day, like I don't think it's over or anything like that, right? Like I don't think like the top is in and it's like time for a bear market. Like that is not at all my thought process here, but potentially seeking slightly lower prices is kind of what I think we're gonna do. But nothing drastic, nothing crazy, nothing super dramatic. But I know you might be in a slightly different camp, Tommy, but that's kind of my thought here. And I mean, equities, let me see real quick.
I just think Bitcoin is noisy. More than like it's very noisy. And I feel like altcoins have been, and I kind of ignored it. But over the last 2 or 3 weeks, altcoins have kind of been communicating the direction of the trend, which was lower. They are just bleeding out. Bitcoin usually just catches up in one candle like it did, obviously, over the weekend.
Yeah. And all this is happening while equities remain pretty strong, right? Like, oh man, I don't even know what this was. Some fractals we were playing around with yesterday, but equities are just chopping sideways. So nothing really, it's not like we're having crazy equity selling or anything like that. QQQ still looks fine. Pretty sure IWM gapped up today. Yeah. So somewhat crypto specific selling recently, but let me look at one more thing. Let me look at this real quick. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of still smashing this.
Look at DXY in the 10-year too, brother.
That's a good point. The DXY looks pretty bad. That looks terrible, as does the 10-year. I'm going to put it right next to it. It's those things, right? It's different if DXY was looking super bullish and the 10-year was looking, oh my God. Wow. Yeah, that's great. That's great for us.
2 + 2 = dolphin right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you're coming into
you're getting everything that you wanted. Pro crypto news, positive crypto legislation. I think it's all but an inevitability that we get, some sort of strategic digital asset reserve in the US. You have, again, DXY 10-year puking, you have stocks holding. But yeah, it's one of those weird times when good news is bad news and bad news is bad news, and nothing seems to want to shake this market from being just completely cucked. And then you have like Trump's family and business buying ETH, and then you have BlackRock and Fidelity buying ETH, but it's like it just doesn't seem to matter,
Mm-hmm.
Just doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, I think we get a little possible bounce here on the 10-year, and then it's over. And the DXY should follow somewhat quickly too. So yeah, all our like fundamental catalysts and factors have not swayed bearishly at all, right? Like they still look fine. So I saw somebody in the comments, you can answer this, Max, asking about the seasonality, right? Of like, is that disproven at this point? Thoughts?
The seasonality of Q1 of January?
Yeah, just like we should have,
Well,
outperformance in the first few months of this year.
January have definitely been disproved. I think that's pretty much done. We are in February by now, and what ends up being Q1, we shall see. I think seasonality, just as anything, needs to be used as a confluence, right? Because you always need to put it into context of everything that's happening at the time. So seasonality is good, news are good, sentiment is good, but it needs to be a complement, not the basis of your takes, I would say. I do not think it's reasonable to be just long because seasonality says long or short. I think we need to go with what the market is giving, and that if the seasonality supports it, even better. You are raising your probabilities.
Max,
I think there were a lot of signs that pointed favorably for ETH until 3K was lost. And I think when that happened, obviously the conditions shifted very quickly. But I do think that really most things were communicating higher prices, except for fairly anecdotal, like I made this joke in the Discord, like fractal porn. But yeah, I mean, it has also, I will say this, I mean, it's the first time this market has not respected seasonality since the 2022 bear market lows, because we've talked about this. The best performance throughout the cycle has been in Q4 and Q1, pretty much without fail, in 2022 and 2023 and 2024. The market saw its biggest periods of outperformance during those quarters, periods that are typically very favorable for equity markets and TradFi seasonally.
Yeah, some people saying QT needs to end. I agree. We talked about this yesterday, right? We need to see the Fed balance sheet run off slow, right? It doesn't have to stop and it doesn't have to reverse, but it needs to chill out here. So, I mean, there was something I saw where Bessent was they're gonna have to refill the reverse repo markets like this week potentially, like. So that should be a positive liquidity event, but yeah, QE would be lovely.
I guess we're going to find out about the new Treasury Secretary, right? Will he be will he be like Janet Yellen, and how creative they got basically stimulating the market while doing QT?
Yeah, I miss Yellen, man. She was great.
Truth be told, guys, if we are talking about QT, we gotta be honest that like the market was going up for the entire time of QT, actually. Like SPX have been going up ever since QT was introduced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin went to 109K on the back of QT, right? So
I do not agree that like we do, like I think it helps totally, but it's not like we just need QE, right?
Mm-hmm. I guess the contention, Jackus, is that you can't have. It's more so for ETH and ETH BTC and altcoins than Bitcoin, right? That you need some sort of stimulation. That's the proposal.
I think you need the stimulation in when there is a real panic and things are selling off big time. That's when you need QE to stabilize the markets, right, and not cause a cascade of events. But when pretty much nothing is like happening, or like things are just sort of normal, bouncing itself in and out, it's not like you need QE to support the markets more, in my take.
Mhm.
No, you don't. But selfishly, I want QE because
Oh yeah,
our bags go higher.
of course.
Of course. Yeah.
So like, if we look at it, right, basically they've been going on with, we can maybe put it on the chart here quickly. 1 sec. If we think about it, we had and that's the thing, I think it has changed a lot from the past in terms of like, in the past, the central bank simply did what it did at the time. Instead, this time it's trying to communicate ahead of time what it's going to do. And so, for example, we see that, by the time that, sort of like we see the Wall Street balance sheet topping here, we see that the market was pretty much, not that it was bottomed, but it didn't really go much lower later on in October 2022. And so if we look at it this way, what I'm trying to say is that the market was pretty much bottomed on the news of QT. It was more like the news that the QT is going to come, right? Which they were announcing approximately here, that the market really went into a bear market. And then shit hit the fan when we saw banks collapsing in March 2023. If you remember, it feels like it's in another lifetime by now, March 2023. And at the time, they supported the market. They printed lots back then, and that stabilized the market as well. And we've been on a QT basically ever since, except this rare occasion. And yet the market went up. But I agree, QE definitely doesn't hurt for markets to keep going up.
No, you're right about that. I think equities could use some QE, not in the sense that it has to, right? I mean, maybe they just kind of chop up here. Maybe they distribute. I don't know. But what I do know is that we're having some difficulties with the 6,100 level on the S&P. We've consistently had issues with that level. Volatility is, and then you have the push and pull dynamic with volatility that we've been discussing as well, which is looking like it's setting a floor, which means, with that push-pull dynamic, there's only two different things that can happen. Either the S&P is going to drop and volatility is going to rise, which has kind of been what's happening as we beat around this level, or eventually we're going to break out of this level. The market's going to rise. Eventually, volatility is going to rise with it. So, I think some QE would probably help assist the latter scenario. But right now, right, I mean, 6,100 is capping equity market prices, at least the S&P. And as we discussed yesterday on the show, we do have some headwinds, at least as far as the Mag 7 goes, just kind of expecting further NVIDIA downside here probably over the next few weeks.
Yeah, basically the same thing. So if we look at this, we see the real spikes in QE the moment the market really like shed the bet, right? The same COVID, the same 08, the same March 2023 when we saw few US banks collapse. Wasn't that dramatic. It still caused the spike, so they are ready to support it anytime there is a big drop. I think the QE doesn't come really until then. I think do you think we could get maybe like this, Tommy, or anyone? Everyone's muted. Max is working. It's just me.
No, sorry, I'm here. I had to help my wife with something.
Yeah. So do you think we can get something like this, basically, like like slow end and then U-shape, sort of V-shape something in QE?
Yes, I think we could see something like that.
Yeah, that would.
I don't think the day would just explicitly stimulate with stocks at all-time highs, though. I think you'd kind of have to force their hand a little bit.
Yeah. Well, if we look at times when we had a gradual QE, not like spike up, which we know spikes comes in when they need to support it. But if we were to get a gradual one to stimulate, well, you can see we have a pretty much a bull market, and then the QE comes in and it's an extended bull market pretty much. Then you sort of have like QE end and the market pauses, but then continues to go on until you get a QT again, and then the market really pauses, drops big time, and then there's bigger problems and they stimulate big time. So I think, in that regard, I think the big bear market sort of happened in 2022, and I could easily see us basically sort of be, maybe like pause here, but I'm not sure I'm necessarily seeing some like big bear market, right? Like I'm not seeing something like this necessarily right now. So I think rather we could get a pause and then maybe continuation, sort of something in this. Obviously not like in this time frame. I'm just using squiggly so that it's visible on the chart, just making that notion for people. But yeah, something like that.
I agree. I don't really think there are many things that favor a long drawn out bear market in equities right now, right? I mean, I've kind of discussed this concept a few times on my X account. It's still so weird saying X instead of Twitter, but the prolonged bear markets in equities are almost more of an anomaly than the volatility events, which is, most people would probably say the opposite, right? Because volatility events are kind of inherently rare, but if you haven't noticed, they're becoming less and less so, largely because, as we've discussed, in equity markets, the positioning always tends to be very one-sided, very skewed in one direction. And so when that unwinds, you get these really aggressive moves down. We've seen that, in like 2018, 2020, great example. We had Volmageddon. You had a Vol event like 6 months after Volmageddon. You had COVID, within that same window. And then obviously, as we saw in August, we had the big August correction, which is a very fast move down. Most of our moves down in equities over the last 6 months, or rather 6 to 9 months, have been very, very quick. So I think any downside that you see is likely to be quicker than not and ultimately bought back up, unless you see a very long-term rounding top. That's just going to be my expectation. I could comment on politics. I don't think the current president is going to be I think he's going to try his hardest not to allow a multi-year bear market. But I think from a positioning standpoint, there's not really many similarities to 2022, because what created that downtrend is that volatility was well supplied. We were in the most telegraphed rate hiking cycle of all time. So although people got wrecked, we saw 3AC and FTX get carted out, unfortunately, in crypto land. It was pretty expected. People were very well hedged. And that's why you never saw the VIX get above like 35 in 2022. That's what created that slower downtrend. I don't think that I don't think positioning is in favor of that sort of downtrend right now. But
yeah, I highlighted, times when there was a change pretty much. So like we had and obviously each time is slightly different, and it was a reaction to something and so forth. And you cannot really see that in hindsight. And again, as I said, like they changed the way they work nowadays, where they announce things ahead rather than back then they just did not really communicate those changes way in advance. But I think it's kind of interesting, here, like we see QE go up, then it clearly gets paused and you get a drop here in 2010. Then markets, basically right there, you began QE again, and it was already kind of going up, but it keeps supporting it, right? And then they end it quite visibly right here, and then you get another puke. And then you have a QE coming in, they ended, and you enter this range period, and then it's a range period. People are used to it, and then there's another change. You get QT, and then the market is sort of again in this weird range. So I think these changes definitely matter. If we were to get a QE in any regard, then it will really depend on what it is. If we were to
we're
get
ranging until we get some sort of event that forces stimulus.
possibly, yeah, possibly. Seems like I feel I'm at the belief right now that they'll keep on doing the QT as much as they can until the market allows them, and then if there is some problem, they'll just say, "Hey, we are ready here. We have the tools. QE begin," and they'll do it. And I do think it will sort of restart. But we see each time, I'm not seeing any time in which when QE was introduced again, pretty much, that it would be bad for the market. Maybe
Right.
like this was the only one sort of, or like this is really a specific scenario because you had QE, the market started to go up on it, and then COVID came, of course, and they just did more of it to save it. So that's that. But yeah, I think anytime there was a QE, it was definitely bullish for the markets.
Well, extra liquidity always tends to find its way back into markets, especially Bitcoin. So
yeah,
I will say one of the narratives that I've been kind of thinking about more, and that I feel like I've been seeing more rhetoric around, is a lot of macro people who are not very crypto literate are interested in crypto and Bitcoin because they think equity valuations are very close, obviously to the roof, which, you could say probably for a while, but, I think that's a little bit different when we talk about, equity valuations being too high with the S&P back in 2023 versus now, right? I think, but I also believe that lends favorably to kind of that cyclical timing of that capital rotation. And that sentiment reflects it as well. If equities are getting saturated and potentially, maybe not overvalued, but overcrowded, that opens up opportunity for crypto as well. And I think it times out well with hopefully QE as well. But just something that I saw on X a little bit more here over the last few weeks. And I think I got somebody's newsletter here like 2 or 3 days ago where he was like, yeah, I think equity valuations are a little bit saturated. Crypto looks increasingly attractive as a result, at least on like a higher time frame.
indeed.
What do you think about gold, Jackus? Because I have been seeing that gold has been pumping in recent weeks.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, I said this many times. I do not see reason to be bearish gold for some time, especially like on the verge of the fact that central bankers just have a plan to keep the perma swap bid for the many years now. They simply, all of them were under allocated, and they are trying to make it larger part of their portfolio. So you have it's sort of like QE basically. You just have a QE for gold, where central bankers are dumping fiat currency and making gold bigger part of their reserves. And this is happening across many nations. So I'm not saying like you can get local hiccups, but I still think that this breakout is, and as I've been saying, this breakout was simply confirmation of that. But still, as much as this is a bullish thesis, still price had to support it, right? That's number one thing for me. And this breakout really did it for me. And I remember so many people kept telling me, oh, the market's overbought here, we're gonna go down, and then the market's overbought, we're gonna go, and the market's overbought, and we're gonna go down, and the market's overbought. It keeps going up because there's a perma bid from central banks.
What's your target for gold? I don't know if you've said it, I can't remember if what it is.
Yeah, so my take was that from this period, it's going to double, if not triple. But as usual, right? Like people forget it's a price discovery for a reason. The market is trying to discover a fair value price for the asset for the time, because value can be mispriced for some time, but on the long run it gets back to value. Sometimes it gets above it, that's what we call speculative bubble. Sometimes it gets below it, that's usually depression. But over time the value is somewhere in the middle, and I simply think the market is now trying to find a value. And my take is always, like, I do have some targets, right? But I generally stay bullish as long as the market is. And when it changes, you need to change with it. But so far, I'm not really seeing reason to be somehow bearish gold right now, especially with still all of the uncertainty in the world and with central bankers still accumulating. I think like probably in 3 years, maybe that's the time we can start like truly talking being. And obviously it's a different, right? If you are like, you know, on H4 and you are like trading
God.
these, then maybe.
That
By the
curl
way,
up is beautiful.
yeah. Well, if you are like an H4 trader, then, or like, you know, just lower time frame, then, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, whatever you think. But if it really comes to the time frame we discuss, and on the higher one, I'm just like not seeing.
Usually a good time to sell gold is when crypto Twitter people will start talking about where can I buy gold on chain. That's almost like
Gold on chain
% hit rate. Sell your gold, at least locally speaking.
As it happens to me, you can buy gold on chain.
I know.
Gold PaxG.
Well, I remember it was 2023, I think, when it was ripping, and everybody all of a sudden was like, "Oh, I need to get some gold on chain. It's better than shitcoins." But I mean, that rhetoric was, in hindsight, like the perfect thing or the perfect signal to be rotating out of gold and into shitcoins. Just funny how that goes.
Yeah.
Usually with assets that CT is not paying attention to, when they start paying attention to them again, you're pretty close to an inflection point. Like the dollar, for example. At least I think the dollar's close to an inflection point. What's it doing today? I loved that rejection we had off 110 on the dollar.
Yeah, same. But I do hope it rejects here. The month is definitely looking good, but I just hope it can keep it up, right? No more bounces.
I mean, do you think it follows the 10-year, Jackus?
Like they are correlated quite obviously, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it does make sense from a fundamental point of view. You can get a difference in here, right, in which the 10-year went really higher than the DXY, but still the moves pretty much happen more or less in a similar fashion. So, yeah. I think if if 10-year was nuking, then it definitely puts downward pressure on DXY.
Well, it's nuking right now. The old 10-year.
Keep it coming.
I saw somebody talking about that today. I think I could still see one last stab up on the 10-year. I don't know what would cause it, but if I were trading it like a shitcoin, I could still see one more stab up on the 10-year. But I think after that's done, it's going to be a wood, like that might be the shoulder right there. Right. I'm kind of looking at this. I see the Bitcoin top, like topping that I know. I'm not sure whether we're going to get that third stab above the high, and then reject, or if we're already on the complacency shoulder. But I think I'm probably leaning that we're going to take one more stab at the highs, and then I think it's going to reject.
You're thinking this, right?
Yeah.
I see exactly what you mean. So where does that leave us? Eco lows, just like for BTC in May 2021.
Bounce from there, complacency shoulder, and then negative rates. Not really, but hopefully not. I think that would be probably too big of a swing in the other direction.
Do we have a longer term chart on TradingView for the yields? Like it shows us longer price history. That's stupid. Let's try 30. Yeah. So, anyways, guys, what do we think of our beloved Magic Internet coins? Which ones do you want to start with?
Well,
BTC, Sol, BNB.
I'd rather focus on majors that aren't Bitcoin, because I do think that Bitcoin is a touch noisy with all the back and forth swinging that it's doing right now, right? Like we know Bitcoin's stronger than the market. I don't need to see the 1,000th tweet that thinks it's original saying, "Oh my God, did you guys realize that altcoins are doing this and Bitcoin's still at 90K or like 95K?" Thank you, Sherlock. I've seen that joke. I've only seen that joke like 200 times in the last week. You're very creative. But I do think with that said, like Bitcoin is very noisy. I almost feel like to some degree, the weakness that we've seen in altcoins could be preceding weakness in Bitcoin in the sense that, I mean, obviously altcoins are going to be sold off to support Bitcoin. But what happens when you have all of these altcoins that have kind of been in downtrends and are breaking below some key support levels? You know, is there enough fuel to continue to prop up Bitcoin? These are questions that I kind of ask myself. You know, if we revisit range low, is that level holding again? And if it doesn't, you know, I don't think Bitcoin's going to dip that low. You know, I don't. But could it? It could. I think I have a clearer read ultimately on things like BNB, ETH, and Solana. Which, you know, Jack, as you've been pointing out, on a higher time frame, they've had market structure breaks. They've had great recoveries here over the last day or so, but they haven't reclaimed the levels yet that would signify that it was purely a sweep rather than a substantial high time frame market structure break.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. I think Sol has a little bit lower to come.
You wanna take the screen, Tucker?
Gotcha. Yeah, I think we get that green box again on Sol. 180s, right? But I don't know. It's a little tougher on something like ETH, I think. Like there's just a lot here. Like, you know, this should be some degree of support, you know, but I mean, maybe it's more like, you know, this, but yeah, I think it's just going to take a little time.
I personally, as much as I do not want to see it, I just think we're gonna establish a range here again.
Do you think there's the possibility that we do like this move and then, you know, like...
No, I think we already got that fake breakout, and that happened last Friday. So if you actually do that trend line from the top,
you do like that.
Yeah, and it was more on lower time frame, but it was clear that ETH really wanted, or like it tried to go up. And I think we had all the catalysts there. I'll go with that again. We had people deleting their .eth from their nicknames. Everyone was already shitting on ETH for a long time. You had all the possibly negative sentiment towards it you wanted. There was no need for more downside and more negative sentiment. Like at certain point, you need to have some invalidation, in my opinion, and I think it came. You like people are like, but or like there's that argument, but Trump and Larry is buying, and I'm like, yes, I think it's going to show itself in longer term, right? I do not think they are just buying just like that, but they've also been buying during the 3.2, 3.3k range. That's when Trump was buying. So why would price drop to 2.2k, right? How does the current price make it different compared to the prior one? Or like, I remember when BTC was trading in post March, and ETFs kept going up, and I remember there was one camp saying that the ETFs don't matter. I think that was completely bullshit, but there was the other end saying, hey, ETFs are going up, we're gonna rip. And I was saying that I think, BTC lost its local structure there, and it's going to produce another drop. And that followed, which didn't make the ETFs bearish. It just meant that they simply kept accumulating because their time frame is way different than most Anon's time frame. And then it showed itself when it broke higher. And I think this is going to be the same with ETH. I think by the end of 2025, like it's really tough to give time frame outlooks, right? But I think we could sort of say that by the end of 2025, it will show itself in the chart. But locally, you have to simply respect what the price is doing. So,
I mean, this is definitely something we've talked about. People get way too out in front of their skis at every consolidation, expecting parabolic price action that is yet to occur. And we're kind of just stacking high time frame consolidations on top of each other. And the same thing happens at each one. At the highs, people get very, very bullish, expecting a parabola to ensue because we do have all of these, amazing things happening in the space. There are these very obvious catalysts that everyone can see, and clearly they are benefiting price. I mean, look at where Bitcoin is now versus a year or two ago. Clearly, these flows are driving the market higher. It's just not to the velocity as far as returns go that investors are probably expecting or hoping for, especially in altcoins, because as we know, altcoins only get rotated into substantially. Obviously, there will be pockets of outperformance, but quote unquote alt season will only occur when Bitcoin actually tops.
I mean, do you guys see the case for some of this? A little Adam and Eve action?
It could be.
I could see ETH making the bounce a little bit higher still. Like,
yeah,
I think it could retouch the high. It's not something we didn't see post August sell-off. But I do think we are going to see, like, for me, it really becomes this. I feel I'm in comfy position right now where I sold and the price is below my sell position. And for me, it really becomes a waiting game in which it either reclaims levels or it goes and fills portion of, at minimum, it fills portion of the wick it created 2 days ago. Emilio in the Discord was sharing a statistic. I'm not sure where he got it, but I think it is pretty representative. And 96% of the time, the wicks get filled.
Fully?
To some degree, at least half of it, like equilibrium.
Yeah.
The daily one.
Half of it would be like there.
Yeah. Well, you want to go on to the daily maybe?
Oh, that's right.
I think the window to fill the wick and potentially trade lower prices is the next 1 to 2 weeks, to be honest. Because if we haven't gone lower at that point, I'm just going to assume that we're going sideways for probably maybe even the remainder of the quarter, to be honest, unless we just get some crazy catalyst that pushes the market higher that we haven't, discussed yet.
Yeah,
I think this market is a little bit exhausted on short-term narratives at the moment. And I think yesterday's press conference was pretty indicative of that.
Mm-hmm.
You literally had every narrative you wanted to send the price, and it didn't. And luckily, from the price perspective, I think we get some portion of the wick fill. We then have a bounce, and then possibly we have further drop. From my take,
I'm going to be interested to see how it all plays out. Really, I think it's going to continue to be a busy week. Busy next 2 weeks. It's really been so volatile the last few days already, but I will say I'm loving the trading conditions. Like the volatility that we're seeing, the opportunity that's been afforded both ways. You don't have to catch every move, but if you've caught even one of the last 5 or 6 ping pongs back and forth, you're and as long as you survived, right? As long as you survived and caught even one of those moves with conviction, I mean, you're in a really good spot right now, probably, at least if you are a trader. And so for that reason, I'm excited, but I also know what immediately tends to follow these conditions is the death of volatility. So I would say take advantage of it while you can.
Yeah, we should carve out a range here, I think. I am not assuming it's going to take this long. Again, that was, how long was that? August to November 5th. Wow, that's actually, I don't think it's going to take that long. I think we run some form of that range. I don't think you have to go all the way back down to get that, but like I said before, some sort of higher low, right? Which wouldn't be the end of the world. I don't think so. What does the CME chart look like? Because, we're going to get that at some point. I just think you fade, I think you fade this, and I think you fade this, right? Because I think you're going to do that, or I think you're going to do that. I think it resolves up at some point,
At some point, yeah. This has been my take on the literal weekend still, that I said, hey, we're going to create giant ass CME gap. And I think we are at some point going to fill it, but also I think we go lower. And so there was the Monday sell-off straight away after. But I still think that this is like the bullish case, right? I just do not know exactly when it comes, but I do see this ECME gap being filled. It's the biggest one in the entire history of ECME.
Here's some alpha I will say about gaps and flat candles, because I kind of view them very similarly. What I've noticed, in the past, the flat candles used to be 100% hit rate. The market's coming back very, very soon. Now, when we see these flat candles, when we see these huge gaps form, that's typically indicative of one of two things. Either it's bait and you will revisit that price probably later in the week, or it's the start of a super scammy move. I think this is true on almost any time frame. If you see a flat 4-hour, you see a flat 12-hour, a flat 1-day candle that starts trending, usually they will kind of prey on people who are playing for mean reversion, and they'll wipe them out. That is something that I've kind of noticed. Those flat candles, those gaps can form at the start of a very inefficient and very scammy move. Only in crypto, right? Only in crypto. But I don't blame the market makers. I have noticed that though, when you get those super impulsive moves away from those situations, it can often be the start of a very scammy move. And I say that from experience, right? I mean, I've been on the right side of things like that. I've been on the wrong side of them. And really the ones that I remember more are always going to be the ones that I was on the wrong side and they used it to me.
I don't know. Let's look at Litecoin, because everyone was telling me that Litecoin is going to go up big time, and I was saying, you guys know how bullish I was on XRP2 pump, and people kept telling me, but if XRP is pumping, Litecoin is pumping. I was like, yes, but with it, right? I'm just not seeing, and I mean, like that's the tough part, because you would tend to love Litecoin by heart way more than XRP. Like, I have no attachment towards XRP. If I were, I would have it towards Litecoin, right? But like, just objectively speaking, I saw so many catalysts coming in for XRP. I studied the crime. It was under 7 years of culmination, and the breakout was simply coming, right? And I didn't see those triggers for Litecoin. And so people were like, hey, LTC is going to catch up. And it like did move up with it, but it didn't do not even close the percentages XRP has done. And right now it's sold off again with the market pretty heavy. And to be honest, I'm like for you to be bullish on the market, you need to be bullish on Litecoin here.
Litecoin's a great example of how people will not chase an asset because they're already pumped doors, and they will assume that some other coin will catch up when it doesn't have the same attention on it.
Yeah, I don't think it looks bad here. That was a pretty gnarly wicket put in, but I mean, for me, it's good above here, right? Wouldn't really want to see it get below there, but yeah, wicked all the way to 80, back up to 105. It's not bad. Would like to see it probably curl up here, though. Do something like this. Definitely.
I don't know. The way I see it here is that LTC broke down. Like, if you look at the daily, it literally had that run up prior to it. In that last day of January, that was the run up, and then now you broke below it, and now you're testing from below. I do not think these wicks matter much, to be honest.
I mean, still in a range, right?
Doge looks very similar. At least the local structure looks very similar to Litecoin. A lot of the Dino coins do. But I don't, Doge is a coin I'd probably consider buying if it were to give another leg down, selfishly. Dog.
Man. Oh, no.
It definitely does not look the best, though, I will say.
Where did I even draw this shit from? I mean, yeah, there's no good way to draw it. Let's see. Damn, it whipped all the way to 20. Yeah, I mean, Doge is a barometer of like the meme coin market. I wish it looked better, but.
Are there any meme coins that look good right now? I'm not trying to hate. I'm asking. I don't think any memes look good, really. Pepe could. I think Pepe could look good, but it needs some sideways price action before I say it looks good.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Level would not be good.
People obviously are going to quickly hate on Pepe here, and obviously it's not looking exactly like completely the best, but I would say that it looks way better than most of other memes still that people showed me all the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. A lot of these coins that just got beaten down the last couple weeks really just need time, I think. Just I mean, probably, I don't know if they need that long, but They need some accumulation, some sideways for sure. I don't think all this stuff is just gonna V out, but
I mean, Pepe is Pepe is really trading similarly to ETH. It's truly what it is supposed to be, an ETH beta, and I people are still like, but what about Pepe? Like, where's like? You can look at ETH price and you can say what Pepe looks like.
Yeah.
Pepe is going to send again the moment ETH is ready to go.
I am almost certain that my targets for Pepe will hit the cycle. I have no idea when that will be, but I'm almost certain that they will. That's why I like Pepe. I believe in the meme, not to the point where I'm going to wreck myself or where I'm holding too big of a bag that like I can't trade around it, but I do believe very strongly Pepe will reach having at least 100 billion this cycle, especially if it's an extended cycle. This is something I've been talking about for a long time. Not necessarily the extended aspect of the cycle, but the longer the cycle goes, I think the higher ceiling you get for these meme coins, because inevitably the longer the liquidity cycle is going to be. So
yeah, and if we compare Pepe to ETH, Pepe is still higher than ETH. So in my opinion, like obviously it's down a lot, right? Like compared to its local high, but compared to ETH, it's higher. Compared to other memes, it's higher, and compared to its where it was like prior, it's still higher. So I'm just saying what I'm trying to say is that like on its own, it's still by the market being chosen as the best meme, which I think is going to show itself when the conditions are there for it, is what I'm trying to say.
no, I agree with you, Jackus. It is the market that market has chosen. It's the best meme, in my opinion. It's the best form of ETH beta, at least in the purest form of beta, right? I'm sure you could find better risk-adjusted returns. Maybe not. I guess it just depends on where you timestamp it on something like Aave. But I mean, Pepe has, whenever ETH has marked up in a significant way, Pepe is 10x. Aave might double. Maybe it triples if ETH is going to double, but Pepe is going to probably 10x if ETH doubles. So it's the best ETH beta in the purest sense of the word, right?
Indeed. So
what about Sol memes? What do they look like? Or we can look at Aave as well. Aave is always going to be the strongest DeFi protocol. I think it's got a huge portion of the ETH stake supply and stuff like that. And not that matters, just anecdotal, but yeah, Aave's a tank. It's the bastion of DeFi strength. Not to say that there aren't other good products in DeFi, but this is the one that it's always going to be probably the most utilized DeFi protocol going forward.
I mean, this still looks like it's like mid parabola kind of, like this is like, not that it can't go lower, but it's like this is kind of classic, like, just higher lows, higher highs type of thing. So no, I don't think Aave looks bad at all. A lot of the dinos don't look terrible. Like we looked at a few, but I mean,
we like dinos because most of their supply has already been sold in previous cycles. New coins are just it's funny because it's like people used the facade of, or like the veil of superiority, talking about VC coins for an entire cycle, just to put the market in the hands of, I would say, more natives this cycle. And there's been way more scamming. What do these guys have to say for themselves? But I don't know. Whatever.
XRP doesn't look that bad.
XRP doesn't look that bad. I mean, I think the coins that have had great buybacks should be absolutely taken note of.
Yeah, like that's what I would suggest to people as well. Like really take notes of coins that you just saw had a great buyback or held their levels, right?
Let's see here. I think, let's see this too. I think this 225 is important to hold for sure. If not, I'd say $2 is important to hold. Obviously, you want to hold this structure. Golden pocket here, little 1618 retrace too. So yeah, 220 to 230 is important, I think. Let's see. We got the Fed balance sheet below. Let me throw one of these on. Yep. Again, I like a lot of altcoins. I think it's going to probably take a little time to work some of this out. So something like that. That's ideal. Honestly, that's ideal. You know, I don't think XRP is like coming down. I don't think you're going to fill this wick, honestly. But
Never say never.
Never say never. I know, never say never. But I think the best we can hope for with a lot of these altcoins is a little bit of sideways before resuming an uptrend. Probably carried by Bitcoin, honestly.
This is like the part where everybody wants quick resolution and things start to get it. Like, even if you're a bull and we're going to buy back, I promise you we're not going to be like back at the highs next week. A wipeout like this is going to take a little bit of time, especially on altcoins that got completely bludgeoned here over the last week.
That's exactly my point as well, Tommy, is that I think Tucker said it well, and I had that meme coming in my mind. It's like, can we get a quick buyback? And Tucker was like, best I can do is give you a range.
Best I can do is a short range. Yeah.
Best I can do is a range.
Yeah.
For you, my friend, I give special price. More range.
More range. Like, I think XRP and Doge look kind of similar at one point, but now XRP looks a lot better than Doge.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they had a similar looking.
It's because XRP studied crime and Doge isn't. Doge studied crime last cycle.
Like this. And XRP just looks so much better now. But what's going on?
What other alts should we look at?
What's going on?
We can look at soul memes. I haven't taken a look at those in a week. How's our dear friend Popcat doing? Not really too much better. With not much better either. Some of these I will say some of these altcoins gave like little tiny pity bounces that make me believe like the bottom is not in on some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And he has spoken about things that had a good buyback. This is a good example of something that did not.
Yeah.
I thought it had a great catalyst though, Jackets. Why did I get dumped on again?
Turns out it really was just a duck with a head.
They want MOG.
I haven't looked at MOG in a week. I'm curious to see what
Oh my god.
Oh.
I heard that, and Tom is going to love this, that Wintermute is short MOG.
Are they really?
Blow them out, bro. Blow them out.
I will say MOG is it's starting to look dangerously close to Popcat.
The Christmas tree.
Yeah. But I mean, as we know, Popcat literally gave no bounces. I don't know. I think they're better looking coins if you really want to take risk. But for me, I mean, with charts, a lot of these charts look like this. And it's like, I could be catching the Pico bottom, discounted prices that 2 or 3 months ago I never could have foreseen. But at the same time, I could be wrong and my downside risks still be pretty substantial, which is why we highlight, these levels that majors can still reclaim to instill more confidence in taking risk. 3K ETH, 620 BNB, 225 Solana. You'll see the market risk on after those levels are reclaimed, in my opinion, not before.
Not sure what it means though, but post the liquidation bonds that we got, ETH is still holding the strongest, not like selling off as much. But I'm not sure again what it means. Like, is it just lagging? But if I look at it's obviously it's sold off way more on the downside, but like post the liquidation bonds, even BTC dropped more than ETH currently. Not sure what it means. Just stating the fact.
There were some DeFi tickers, like I said, that they didn't dump nearly as hard as ETH did on this last leg, but their structures are still totally like FUBAR. So I almost feel like this leg down, you get your ETH outperformance to the downside maybe a little bit more substantially, because if those DeFi assets are going to trade lower prices, contextually that's favorable for probably ETH leading to the downside. But I guess, we'll have to see how that plays out. I'm just AVE looks incredibly strong, but I think at the same time you have things like ENA, which was championed as one of kind of the new coins to bring the resurgence in DeFi a few weeks ago. I have to say it looks pretty weak. Obviously, we've talked about Rune a few times on this show. I don't think it's particularly important to eat DeFi anymore, but also really bad. Now I think you have Pendle as well, which is a coin that we've talked about before on this show. And I think the high time frame chart on Pendle, how many memes have we seen break down from exactly the structure in the last few weeks? So I would just highlight that. Makes me kind of believe ETH has a little bit deeper to probe.
I was gonna say, if one of you wants to open up the naked Pendle chart, and right there, Tucker opens up Pendle chart.
Oh, it's so fugly. If it bounces out of there, man, I don't know shit. like if it V recovers to the highs again, I don't know anything about markets, man. That thing looks bad.
Can you put it even on the weekly?
McDonald's. I'm loving
McDonald's.
Yeah, probably coming lower. We'll see.
I think the relative strength or weakness is what you want to look for if you're an ETH bull or an ETH bear. Because there are structures like Pendle, like ENA, that look to me like they could be threatening larger moves down. And if that is the case, then ETH probably will make a new low.
Hang on. So this guy wants thoughts on a log regression trend. ETH dipping. Oh, okay. He's asking about, is ETH going to come home? I think you want what I'm referring to.
Define home.
Define home.
All
right. I'll define home.
I think the window of opportunity for ETH to quote unquote go home is within the next 1 to 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume we're going to get a hellish range. It's going to be so awful, but could be bullish for NFTs if ETH is going to range. So, milady.
Oh, I don't know how this guy hasn't drawn. He hasn't drawn differently. But basically, the one I know he's referring to is like it's like $1,000 basically.
$1,000 for ETH?
Yep.
That would be brutal.
The chat's cracking me up today.
Yeah.
I feel like you truly cannot lose the higher time frame range lows.
Of what? 2100?
No, of this 4-year cycle, 4-year long range.
That I don't think we will give up.
That-
Even on the nastiest of wicks, I don't think we give
Are you
up.
talking about this as a range low?
No. I'm talking about May 2021.
May 2020. Oh, you're
I see.
May 21. Oh, here. 1700s.
Yeah. But you definitely like listen, if ETH were to go, no, I'm not like I can have a locally bearish take, but I do not think it's fun entertaining ETH at 1000.
No.
I'm bull by heart, but locally it is what it is. Listen, man, people always like. I feel the market is so divided right now, like 50-50, and it's one side is just so certain we're gonna. I mean, maybe that's nearly all the time, but one side is just so certain we're gonna go up, and the other is so certain we're gonna go down. But whatever happens, they'll be here in the comments saying they told us, and the other part will disappear.
There was a great comment in our Discord today. If everybody knew everything that was going to happen all the time in markets, then we'd all be rich. But that's what makes this game so fun.
Exactly.
And keeps us here, right? But now ETH, ETH loses that level. It could wick. It could. Who knows where it could wick? But I think the buyback would be a pretty pristine entry. At least that's kind of how I'm looking to play it personally. But I'm going to be the 25-year-old technical analyzer. Volatility incoming. I don't think the volatility that we've had is quite over yet. I did say, I don't know if you guys follow me on X, but I did say, I think like a week and a half ago, like, don't short volatility.
You did.
I didn't know what direction it was going to be necessarily, but once we lost that pivot, it definitely became a lot more clear.
What do you guys think about this Sol ETH chart? Somebody was saying they think it's topped.
I have no edge on this chart.
I know.
I'm not even going to try. The amount of times I have thought I had a good read on it.
I was very bullish on this chart at the bottom. Then I was I would say bearish on it somewhere like halfway through in 2024, and it kept going up. So, but this last week with the Trump launch coin, which was an immediate rug on everything, does send the vibes there, but hard to say.
I think it looks a little toppy.
Why is it so? Why is it so difficult to trade this chart? I don't know. I don't know. It just kind of is. But I will say, I mean, I think it's one of those things you have to be respecting the trend, just like Bitcoin. Ultimately, the high time frame direction is pretty clearly up until proven otherwise. This one might take a bit of time to round out before it ends up topping for the cycle. But I don't know where it's headed. It's probably, I mean, like I would just pay attention to probably the rhetoric around what people are doing on chain. What are people still using on chain for? Speculating? Well, Sol will probably keep outperforming ETH if that's the case. If you see real headlines and real catalysts that hint there's going to be actual tokenization of assets, ETH will probably be the beneficiary of that. So,
should be.
But locally, I have no edge trading this.
I mean,
guys, what do you think of the take that retail is here or retail is not here? I feel like it doesn't really matter because retail simply cannot pump this market or do much with it. And I think we saw that this cycle too, where retail was simply in the trenches trying to pump every single meme. but I do not think it has the liquidity to pump something like BTC or ETH or any of the majors to a large extent.
I
Can
completely agree.
Yeah,
I completely agree with you. I think retail is here. I think they don't matter.
Yeah.
Not to say that you guys, you lovely retail in the audience, don't matter, but what moved the markets in the last cycle was not retail. It was institutions, hedge funds that acted like retail and complete degenerates. So
the reason I'm like not really caring about comments much is like you have literally people who come in and say Jekis is always bearish, and then right there you can have a guy who will say exactly opposite, and or like they will tell me that I was bearish at August 5th when I was literally it's just like
people write fan fiction about us, Jackus. The only thing at the end of the day that speaks is or speaks for itself is the P&L curve. And I've had a pretty great last 12 months. So
just doesn't make sense. They are just spitting whatever, like random word generators.
Yeah.
And then it's tough because there is like people who are genuinely interested in the thoughts and would love to have a general discussion. And then it's hard to distinguish which ones are which sometimes.
I think there's a lot of just kind of lashing out and probably coping because a lot of altcoins are very down from the high. There's a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of people that, let's be real. It was a very quick reversal last week. Like I said repeatedly, ETH went down 1,200 points in 3 days. A lot of people were not and are not nimble enough to be able to position for a move like that. And so, yeah, there's just probably a lot of hurt feelings. It's going to create a lot of just kind of like unnecessarily lashing out at people. But at the end of the day, guys, you're always responsible for your own book, your own decisions. And so are we.
Yep. Our equity's still strong today.
Yes, I still think equities are lying here.
Juggernaut, dude. Absolute juggernaut. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I still think somebody needs to save the NVIDIA chart, though, man. This, I'm going to keep saying it. This doesn't look that great to me.
Let me tell you this, Tucker.
Jackus. Hooked.
Listen, NVIDIA will fill this big gap at one point, and ETH will fill that CME gap as well.
Oh, you think that's confluence? So that happens at the same time?
Probably NVIDIA front runs it, as we know ETH. But I think it's happening for both. But I also think that both have more downside to come locally, which is something that completely triggers people because they think that you need to be bull on all time frames at all times.
People don't understand the idea that you don't have to position your entire portfolio at one time in one direction. Like that is a very complex thing. And most people that's how most people just position one way all the time.
Yeah.
Whole portfolio.
All in one coin.
The modern speculator cannot comprehend nuance.
The modern speculator. What is diversification? What is portfolio sizing?
Trading in more than one direction. Even though personally, I rarely trade in more than one direction for the last 2 years, but still, the hedges we put on recently have been somewhat nice. I'm getting squeezed in one, but you know, it is what it
is. Well, Rune short on your part has been absolutely amazing. So
yeah, Tommy had a prime entry on the Rune short.
Dude, Rune has been so good to me, I gotta say. Rune, we won't bully Rune too much today. We've already taken out plenty of pain on it, but it is still going to zero.
Yeah. All right. You want to wrap it up there, Tommy? Been going for a little while.
Yes. Let me take a minute to yap your ear off, guys. We hope that you enjoyed the stream. If you have seen anything today or heard anything from analysts today that interests you, maybe you are interested in prospecting some of these trades that we're taking around the current volatility, come join the family, guys. Come join our premium Discord. You guys get access to all of the analysts, how we are approaching the market at any given time. Obviously, things changed very quickly over the weekend, so subscribers got some very late updates towards positioning that helped them preserve capital, make some money as well on the way down. But we're going to continue to play this volatility in the same way, and that is successfully. So check out our Discord, guys. As well, you get 4 to 5 hours of daily calls from the team, sometimes even more than that. So I would say it's definitely worth the value. There is not anywhere else that provides anything like that. At least so much access to the team, right? And on top of that, we were nice enough to package that together with the BB Terminal, guys. That is your go-to tool for this cycle, whether or not you are an active trader on lower time frames, whether or not you are a DCA investor, more focused on the long term, and of course, whether or not you are a degen who loves to trade meme coins and on-chain assets, guys. We've got the tool for you. So come check out the BB Terminal as well. Of course, if you're looking to reach trading level mastery or even or hone your educational base, we have a course for you as well. That is the BB Academy, guys. Come learn from the entire team and our diverse set of skills. And really, I mean, we approach markets very differently, right? Like I trade completely different from Will's outlook, for example, but we both play a role in the BB Academy. So if you're interested in learning from the team, that is a great way to do it. And of course, maybe the downside volatility recently was too much for you to be able to stomach. Maybe picking winners has been difficult. Well, we have a solution for you as well, and that is our SEC registered hedge fund, guys. BB Wealth Management. Come let the team manage money for you if you qualify, of course. And we manage digital assets in a way that looks to capture their asymmetric history for upside returns, while also, of course, balancing the downside risks posed in any financial market. But if anything resonated with you just now that I said over the last 2 minutes, check the link in the description below. We have everything linked, and we'll try to get back to you as quickly as we possibly can if you are reaching out about BB Wealth Management. But that concludes today's show, guys. We hope that you enjoyed it. As always, Market Check will be back for another episode tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, make sure to tune in as well for Market Talk with the legendary King Wabi. He will be live later this afternoon as well as on Friday. He is live every weekday except for Thursday. So check that out on his X account as well as the Because Bitcoin X account. That's it from us, though. We hope that you enjoyed the show, guys. Happy Wednesday. Enjoy this volatility, but of course, stay safe. And of course, thanks again.